We're building a city info API, so a cities controller is a good controller to start with. We want to add the controllers to a controllers folder, so that's automatically reflected in the namespace. But because I previously deleted the weather forecast controller, the controllers folder no longer shows up because it's empty. If that's the case on your machine as well, simply click the button to show all files, and here's our controllers folder again. We could now just right-click and choose to add a controller. And that's what we'll do later on in the course. But for now, we're not going to use this option. Instead, we're going to start from an empty class. Manually adding the required code makes it a bit easier to understand what's going on. So we add a new class and name it Cities Controller. Then let's have this Cities Controller class derive from controller base. That's defined in Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.MVC, so let's import that namespace. Controller base contains basic functionality controllers need, like access to the model state, the current user, and common methods for returning responses. You could also derive from controller. But that base class contains additional helper methods to use when returning views, which isn't needed when building an API. So we're going to stick to controller base. The next thing we want to do is apply the API controller attribute. This isn't strictly necessary, but doing so configures this controller with features and behavior aimed at improving the development experience when building APIs. Think about requiring a certain type of routing, automatically returning a 400 bad request on bad input, and returning problem details on errors. We'll encounter a few of these throughout the course. Then we'll need a method that returns data. At this moment, we're going to keep this very simple. We want to return JSON as the representation format of our data. For that, we can use the JSON result class. This returns a JSONified version of whatever we pass into the constructor of JSON result. We want to return a list of cities, but we currently don't have a city model class. So let's start with two anonymous objects, giving them an ID and a name. Let's make sure we return this JSON result. And let's give that a try. Attribute routing. Let's learn what that's all about.